John Carter walked through the long hallway of Station Nexus for what he knew would be the last time. His black diplomatic shoes clicked against the metal floor as he made his way to the council chambers. In his hand, he carried a simple folder, containing humanity's final petition for full membership in the Galactic Council. For 30 years, humans had served the galaxy. They built the space stations that connected distant worlds. They fought in wars that protected alien colonies. They solved technical problems that other species could not figure out. Yet after 3 decades of faithful service, humans still had no vote in galactic decisions. They were treated like useful tools rather than equal partners. John had been Earth's ambassador for 15 years. He had attended countless meetings, filed hundreds of reports, and made thousands of requests. Every time the answer was the same: humans were not ready for full membership. They needed more time to prove themselves worthy. Today would be different. Today, John carried humanity's final request. If the Council said no again, Earth had already decided what to do next. The massive doors to the Council chamber slid open, with a soft hiss. Inside, representatives from 12 different alien species sat in a circle around a raised platform. The chamber was designed to make visitors feel small and unimportant. It worked on most species, but John had learned long ago not to be intimidated by fancy decorations. Prime Counselor Zethrak dominated the center of the room. His body was made of living crystal that changed color based on his mood. Right now, the crystal pulsed with deep blue light, which John knew meant boredom. The other council members barely looked up as John entered. "Ambassador Carter," Zethrak said without warmth. "You have requested this emergency session. Speak quickly. We have important matters to discuss after you leave." John stepped onto the platform and looked around the room. To his left sat Counselor Vexana of the Vorthan people. Her species looked like floating clouds of gas held together by energy fields. She had always found human requests amusing, often giggling during serious discussions. Behind her, the insect-like Chitauri representative clicked his mandibles impatiently. The Chitauri controlled most of the galaxy's mining operations, using human-designed equipment operated by human workers. In the corner, nearly hidden in a tank of blue liquid, floated Counselor Deeptal of the aquatic depth species. His people ran the galaxy's communication networks, all built and maintained by human engineers. John had spoken to these beings hundreds of times. He knew their languages, their customs, and their prejudices. More importantly, he knew exactly how much they depended on human labor while pretending humans were inferior. "Honored counselors," John began, his voice calm and professional. "I come before you today with humanity's final petition for full membership in the Galactic Council." Several council members made sounds of annoyance. Zethrak's crystal body flashed red with irritation. "Ambassador Carter," the Prime Counselor said, "we have discussed this matter many times. The answer remains unchanged. Humans are not ready for the responsibilities of full membership." "With respect, Prime Counselor," John replied, "humanity has been serving the galaxy for 30 years. We have built 70% of the infrastructure in Council space. Human soldiers make up half of the Galactic Defense Force. Human scientists have made breakthrough discoveries in medicine, engineering, and physics. What more do we need to prove?" Counselor Vexana's gaseous form shimmered with what John recognized as laughter. "Dear little human," she said in her voice like wind chimes, "building things and following orders does not make you worthy of leadership. You are skilled workers, nothing more." The Chitauri representative, Counselor Clickstar, clicked his agreement. "Humans are useful," he admitted, "but usefulness is not the same as wisdom. You are too young as a species, too emotional, too unpredictable. Your species has existed for barely 200,000 years, added Deeptal from his tank. "We have been making galactic decisions for millions of years. You must learn patience." John had heard these arguments before. Age, wisdom, emotional control. The same excuses used to keep humans in their place while aliens benefited from human work and innovation. "Counselors," John said, his voice remaining steady, "I understand your concerns about human readiness. However, I must point out that human contributions to galactic society have been essential to your continued prosperity." Zethrak's crystal form pulsed brighter red. "Are you threatening us, Ambassador?" Not at all, Prime Counselor. I am simply stating facts. The terraforming technology used on New Kepler was developed by human scientists. The defensive systems protecting the outer colonies were designed by human engineers. The trade routes that generate 60% of galactic commerce were mapped by human explorers. And we are grateful for these contributions, Vexana said, her tone suggesting she was anything but grateful. However, contribution does not equal qualification for governance. Humans lack the intellectual capacity for true leadership. The words hit John like a physical blow, but he showed no reaction. He had been expecting this. The Council's arrogance had been growing for years as they became more dependent on human labor, while simultaneously convincing themselves that humans were inferior. I see, John said quietly. He opened his folder and removed a single sheet of paper. Then I have one final document to present to this council. Another petition? Clickstar clicked dismissively. How many different ways can you ask the same question? This is not a petition, John replied. He held up the paper so all the council members could see it. This is humanity's formal withdrawal from all galactic agreements, effective immediately. The chamber fell silent. Even the usual background hum of the station's systems seemed to fade away. Zethrak's crystal body stopped pulsing. Withdrawal? What do you mean? I mean exactly what I said, Prime Counselor. Humanity is ending all treaties, agreements, and cooperative arrangements with the Galactic Council. We are going home. Vexana's gaseous form rippled with what John now recognized as shock rather than amusement. You cannot be serious. Humans cannot survive without galactic support. We survived for thousands of years before we met you, John replied. We will manage. Deeptel's voice bubbled up from his tank with urgency. Ambassador, think carefully about what you are saying. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are threats beyond your understanding. You need our protection. John smiled, but it was not a warm expression. Counselor Deeptel, in the past 30 years, human soldiers have fought in every major conflict in this galaxy. We have died protecting worlds we had never seen to save people who consider us inferior. I think we understand galactic dangers quite well. This is madness, Clixatar chittered. You would abandon everything over hurt feelings? Not hurt feelings, Counselor. Principles. Humanity will not continue to serve masters who refuse to treat us as equals. Zethrak's crystal form began pulsing rapidly between red and yellow, indicating confusion and anger. You are making a terrible mistake, Carter. Without galactic technology and resources, human colonies will fail. Your people will starve. You will come crawling back within a year, begging for readmission. John placed the withdrawal document on the platform and stepped back. And perhaps you are right, Prime Counselor. Or perhaps you will discover just how much you have depended on those barely evolved primates you find so amusing. He turned and walked toward the chamber doors without waiting for dismissal. Behind him, he could hear the council members arguing among themselves in multiple languages. Carter! Zethrak's voice boomed across the chamber. You cannot simply leave. There are procedures, negotiations, transition periods. John paused at the doorway and looked back. Prime Counselor, you have made it very clear that humans are not intelligent enough to understand proper procedures. I am sure beings of your superior wisdom can figure out the details. The doors slid shut behind him, cutting off the sounds of panic and argument from within. John walked back down the long hallway, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He had one more task to complete. In his quarters, John activated his quantum communicator and sent a single message to Earth. Package delivered. Time to come home. Within hours, the message would reach every human colony, research station, and military outpost in the galaxy. The exodus would begin immediately. Soon, the Galactic Council would learn what it really meant to lose the species they had taken for granted for so long. John Carter packed his few personal belongings and prepared for the journey home. Behind him, he left an empty office and a galaxy that was about to discover just how much it needed. The humans it had dismissed as inferior. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood in the main laboratory of Research Station Alpha 7, watching her team pack the last of their equipment. The station orbited Kepler 442b, a planet that was slowly being transformed into a new world where alien species could live. For 8 years, Lisa had worked alongside scientists from 5 different species to develop terraforming technology. Now she was taking it all away. "Lisa, you cannot be serious about this," said Dr. Kelthane, her closest alien colleague. The Chithari scientist's forearms moved nervously as he spoke. 8 years of work together. We are friends, are we not? Lisa sealed another container of human-designed atmospheric processors. Each device was worth more than most planets made in a year. We are friends, Kel, that is why this is so hard. But my government has made its decision. Because of politics, because some old counselors said harsh words? Kelthane's mandibles clicked with frustration. Science should be above such things. It is not just harsh words, Lisa replied, directing 2 human technicians to carefully remove a quantum computer from its housing. For 8 years, I have watched human innovations get credited to the project as a whole. The atmospheric processors that made this terraforming possible, human design, the soil enrichment systems, human engineering, the weather control satellites, human technology. Yet when the research papers are published, humans are listed as junior contributors. Dr. Velshari, a Vorthan researcher whose gaseous form floated nearby, shimmered with confusion. But credit does not matter. The work matters. The results matter. Lisa stopped packing and looked at her alien colleagues. These were beings she had shared meals with, worked late nights with, celebrated discoveries with. But even they did not understand. Velshari, when the atmospheric processors were first tested, who stayed awake for 72 hours straight to debug the control systems? You did, the Vorthan admitted. And when the soil enrichment project nearly failed, who figured out how to reverse the chemical contamination? Your team, said Kelthane quietly. And when the Galactic Science Council gave out awards for this project, who received recognition? The alien scientists said nothing. They knew the answer. The 3 senior alien researchers had received medals and honors. The humans had been thanked for their valuable assistance. I understand your anger, Dr. Zexapol, the aquatic depths representative, bubbled from his mobility tank. But leaving will not solve anything. Stay and fight for recognition within the system. Lisa sealed the last container and activated its anti-gravity lifts. Zex, we tried that for 30 years. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. We were never meant to be equals. Across the station, similar scenes played out in every human-staffed facility. Captain Rick Barnes supervised the removal of human-built defense systems from Outpost Gamma. The weapons platforms that protected 3-star systems were being carefully dismantled by their creators. Captain Barnes, called Commander Thixlar, of the Galactic Defense Force. Surely you are not taking the planetary defense grid. Rick wiped sweat from his forehead as his engineers worked to extract the targeting computers. Every circuit, every sensor, every weapon system designed by humans comes with us, Commander. But those systems protect billions of civilians. Then I suggest you start training your own people to build replacements, Rick replied. We offered to teach you how these systems work dozens of times. You always said it was unnecessary because humans would handle the maintenance. The Chithari commander's forearms gestured helplessly. We cannot learn such complex systems overnight. You have had 30 years to learn, Rick pointed out. Human engineers tried to create training programs, but your people always had more important things to do. Meanwhile, on the trade station Nexus Prime, Merchant Captain Amy Foster was loading the last of her cargo. Her ship, the Earthrunner, had been the fastest courier vessel in the galaxy for 12 years. Amy had mapped more trade routes than any other pilot, human or alien. Station Master Quillnex, a tall crystalline being, approached her with obvious desperation. Captain Foster, please reconsider. Your routes handle 60% of our commerce. Without you, without me, your shipping costs will double and delivery times will triple. Amy finished. I know. I wrote the efficiency reports that your people never bothered to read. We read them. You filed them, Amy corrected. Big difference. Every suggestion I made to improve the trade networks was ignored because it came from a human. She climbed into her ship and sealed the airlock. Through the porthole, she could see Quillnex still standing on the dock, his crystalline form flickering with distress. The exodus was not just about taking away equipment and ships. The humans were also taking something more valuable: knowledge. Dr. Patricia Wells had spent 15 years developing new terraforming techniques. that could transform dead worlds into gardens in months instead of years. Now she was establishing humanity's first independent colony on New Eden, a planet beyond Galactic Council space. Atmospheric conversion is proceeding faster than expected, she reported to Earth Command over a secure quantum channel. The new bacterial strains are working perfectly. We should have breathable air in 18 months. The techniques Patricia was using had never been shared with alien scientists. They were improvements she had developed in her spare time, innovations that could have benefited the entire galaxy. Now they would benefit only humanity. Back on Station Nexus, the political center of the galaxy, the effects of the human withdrawal were becoming impossible to ignore. Counselor Vexana floated in her private chambers, reviewing reports from across council space. Every message told the same story. Humans were leaving and they were taking everything with them. The Arcturus Trade Hub was reporting system failures. The human-designed environmental controls were malfunctioning without proper maintenance. Station Commander Veltar sent increasingly desperate messages asking for help, but Earth no longer answered official communications. The military situation was even worse. General Harrison Cole, the human who had designed the galaxy's defense strategy, was withdrawing all human forces. Half the galactic defense fleet was crewed by humans. The other half depended on human-maintained equipment and human-developed tactics. Admiral Quintal of the Depths tried one last time to change Cole's mind. General, we face the same enemies. The Void Hunters, the Stellar Pirates, the Chaos Cult. These threats endanger all species. Cole was packing his personal items from his office aboard the command ship Courage. Admiral, for 30 years, human soldiers have died protecting worlds that refuse to give us a voice in galactic decisions. We have shed our blood for people who call us inferior. That ends now. Where will you go? What will you do? We will protect our own people, Cole replied. As for where we go, that is no longer your concern. The quantum communication networks that connected the galaxy were also failing. Human technicians had maintained the relay stations that allowed instant communication across thousands of light years. Without them, messages that once took seconds now took days or weeks to arrive. On Earth, Director Helen Price stood in the Situation Room, watching reports flow in from across the galaxy. The exodus was proceeding smoothly. Every human colony, research station, and military outpost was following the withdrawal plan. 90% of our people are already en route home, reported Colonel Dan Turner. The remaining facilities will be evacuated within the month. Any problems? Helen asked. Some aliens are trying to prevent humans from leaving, claiming they are essential personnel. Our legal teams are handling it, but most governments are backing down when we point out that slavery was outlawed by their own constitutions. Helen nodded. The legal situation was clear. Humans had every right to leave, and most alien governments knew it. The problem was that they had never imagined humans would actually go. Dr. Mike Rodriguez, Earth's Chief Technology Officer, entered the room with a tablet full of data. The aliens are starting to panic. We are getting hundreds of requests for technical support, maintenance contracts, and emergency assistance. All through unofficial channels, of course. What is our response? Helen asked. The same as always. The Terran Federation no longer provides services to Galactic Council members. They are welcome to contact their local representatives for assistance. It was a polite way of saying no. Earth had cut all official ties with the Galactic Council. Any alien who wanted human help would have to go through proper diplomatic channels, which meant acknowledging humanity as an equal partner. So far, none of them were willing to do that. On the outer rim of Council space, the last human military unit was preparing to depart. Captain Steve Blake commanded the destroyer Defiance, which had served with distinction in the Galactic Defense Fleet for 20 years. Now it was time to go home. This is Admiral Quintal to all human vessels, came the transmission. Please, reconsider this course of action. The galaxy needs your protection. Steve activated his communicator. Admiral, humans have been protecting the galaxy since first contact. We have lost thousands of good people defending worlds that will not even acknowledge our sacrifice. That changes now. You condemn billions to suffer for the pride of a few counselors. Station Commander Veltar walked through the corridors of Arcturus Station with growing worry. The massive trade hub that connected 12 star systems was falling apart piece by piece. Warning lights flashed red throughout the station, and the Air felt thick and stale. "Status report," he demanded as he entered the main control room. Chief Engineer Kixanal looked up from his console, his 6 eyes filled with panic. "The atmospheric recyclers are down to 40% efficiency, Commander. The gravity generators are fluctuating between 70 and 120% of normal. The water purification system is producing liquid that tastes like metal." Veltar's crystalline body flickered with stress colors. "What about the backup systems?" "The backup systems are failing too. Everything was designed by humans, and they took all the maintenance manuals when they left. We have been trying to fix things by guessing, but we keep making problems worse." 3 months had passed since the human exodus began. At first, the Galactic Council had been confident that the humans would return within weeks. Pride could only carry a species so far, they reasoned. But weeks turned into months, and there was no sign of human ships returning to Council space. Instead, the problems kept growing. Arcturus Station was not the only facility experiencing failures. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. On Kepler Station, the terraforming equipment that had been running perfectly for 8 years suddenly stopped working. The atmosphere on 3 colony worlds began to slowly turn toxic. The alien scientists who had worked alongside humans for years found themselves unable to operate the complex machinery that humans had designed. Dr. Kelthane stood in his empty laboratory, staring at the atmospheric processor that had been the pride of his research team. Without the quantum computer that Dr. Lisa Morgan had taken with her, the device was just expensive metal and plastic. "We need to contact the humans," he told his remaining team members. "They are the only ones who understand this technology." "The Galactic Council has forbidden any contact with Earth," replied Dr. Velshari. "They say it would show weakness. Then billions of colonists will die from breathing poisoned air," Kelthane said bluntly. "Is that preferable to appearing weak?" The economic situation was even worse than the technical problems. Human traders had not just moved goods from one star system to another. They had created the entire structure of galactic commerce. They had mapped the safest routes, negotiated the best deals, and solved the countless problems that arose when different species tried to do business together. Merchant Prince Zaltex of the Vorthon Confederation sat in his office on New Corinth, reviewing financial reports that grew worse each day. His trading empire, built over centuries, was crumbling. "Shipping costs have increased by 300%, his assistant reported. "Delivery times have doubled. Half of our regular customers are canceling orders because they cannot afford the new prices." "What about the trade routes the humans used?" Zaltex asked. "We have tried to follow them, but we keep running into problems. Pirates, spatial anomalies, customs disputes. The humans seem to handle these things without effort, but we cannot figure out how they did it." The truth was that humans had not just followed trade routes. They had spent decades building relationships with local authorities, learning the patterns of pirate activity, and developing techniques for navigating dangerous areas of space. This knowledge could not be replaced overnight. On Earth, Director Helen Price sat in her office reading reports from the Galactic Council. The aliens were trying to contact humanity through every possible channel. Diplomatic messages, trade offers, scientific collaboration proposals, even personal appeals from individual aliens who had worked with humans. All of them received the same response. "The Terran Federation no longer provides services to Galactic Council members. Please contact your local representatives for assistance." "They are getting desperate," observed Colonel Dan Turner, reviewing the latest batch of messages. 3 different counselors have offered to discuss improved terms for human participation in galactic affairs. But not full membership, Helen noted. Not equal representation. Just improved terms for continued servitude. Meanwhile, on New Eden, Dr. Patricia Wells was watching her terraforming project succeed beyond all expectations. The techniques she had developed in secret were transforming the dead world into a paradise. Rivers flowed where there had been desert. Forests grew where there had been bare rock. The atmosphere was becoming breathable months ahead of schedule. "The bacterial cultures are adapting perfectly," she reported to the other human scientists. "We should be able to remove our breathing masks within 6 months." "What about the soil composition?" asked Dr. Gary Chen, her chief botanist. "Better than Earth normal." The mineral content is ideal for agriculture. We could feed 10 million people on this world within 5 years. New Eden was just one of 12 planets that humans were terraforming beyond council space. Each world was being transformed using techniques that the aliens had never seen. If they had been more willing to treat humans as equals, this knowledge could have benefited the entire galaxy. Now it belonged to humanity alone. Back in council space, the political situation was becoming critical. Councillor Thexim of the Chithari. Hives faced angry delegations from across his territory. Mining operations were shutting down because the human-designed equipment could not be maintained. Manufacturing plants were closing because they could not get the spare parts that humans had always provided. "Where are the humans?" demanded Mining Director Klaxvol. "Bring them back." "We do not negotiate with deserters," Thexim replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then our entire economy will collapse." Klaxvol's forearms waved frantically. "Do you understand what will happen when 50 billion Chithari workers have no jobs? When there is no food, no medicine, no power?" The same conversation was happening in council chambers across the galaxy. The Vorthan Confederation was facing energy shortages because their power stations used human-designed fusion reactors. The Depths Alliance was struggling with communication failures as their quantum networks broke down without human maintenance. Even the proud crystalline hegemony was having problems with their space elevators, which humans had helped design decades ago. Prime Councillor Zethrak called an emergency session of the full council. Representatives from all member species gathered in the Great Chamber on Station Nexus. But the mood was very different from the confident arrogance of 3 months ago. "We must address the human situation," Zethrak announced, his crystal body pulsing with urgent yellow light. "They will return," insisted Councillor Vexana, though her gaseous form seemed less stable than usual. "They are merely throwing a tantrum. All children do this when they do not get their way. Children do not control 60% of galactic commerce," Deeptal bubbled from his tank. "Children do not design the weapons that protect our worlds. Children do not build the machines that keep our people alive." The uncomfortable truth was settling over the council like a heavy blanket. For 30 years, they had convinced themselves that humans were useful, but not essential. Now they were discovering just how wrong they had been. "We could offer them associate membership," suggested Councillor Thexim. "Limited voting rights, perhaps representation on minor committees." "They have already rejected such offers," Zethrak replied. "They want full membership or nothing." "Then perhaps we should consider full membership," Deeptal said quietly. The chamber erupted in angry protests. Voices rose in a dozen different languages as councillors objected to the very idea of treating humans as equals. "Impossible," Vexana shrieked. "We cannot reward this childish behavior." "They are barely evolved primates," Thexim chittered. "Giving them equal status would make us a laughingstock." But even as they protested, the councillors knew that their options were running out. The reports from their home worlds grew worse each day. Critical systems were failing. Economies were collapsing. People were starting to ask why their governments had allowed such an important species to leave. On Earth, Helen Price received a private message from an unexpected source. Ambassador John Carter, the human who had delivered the withdrawal notice, had received a secret communication from Dr. Kelthane on Kepler Station. "Lisa," the message read, "I know you cannot officially respond, but people are dying. The terraforming equipment on 3 worlds is failing. We do not know how to fix it. Please, as a friend, help us." Helen showed the message to her senior staff. "This is the first crack," she said. "Individual aliens are starting to reach out directly, bypassing their governments." "What do we do?" asked Colonel Turner. "Nothing," Helen replied firmly. "We made our position clear. We will not provide services to council members. If they want our help, they need to treat us as equals." "But innocent people will die," objected Dr. Rodriguez. "Innocent people have been dying in human-fought wars for 30 years, Helen reminded him. "The council never cared about those casualties when it was human soldiers paying the price. Harsh reality was that humanity had learned to be pragmatic during their decades of service to the galaxy. They had offered their help freely and been taken for granted." Admiral Quintal stared at the tactical display in horror. The massive ships that appeared on his screens should not have existed. They were things from nightmares, from the oldest warnings passed down through generations of military officers. The Void Hunters had returned. "How many ships?" he asked his tactical officer, though he dreaded the answer. 60 confirmed vessels, Admiral. More are appearing every hour. They are moving toward the outer colonies at maximum speed. The Void Hunters were not like other enemies the galaxy had faced. They were beings of pure energy who fed on the life force of entire worlds. 3 decades ago, they had nearly destroyed galactic civilization before being driven back into the dark spaces between galaxies. Only the brilliant tactics of General Alex Turner had saved billions of lives. But Alex Turner was gone now. He had left with the other humans, taking his knowledge and experience with him. "Send a priority message to all fleet commanders," Quintal ordered. "Implement Defense Plan 7. Defense Plan 7 had been created by General Turner after the last Void Hunter invasion. It was a complex strategy that required perfect coordination between multiple species and ship types. The plan had worked once before, but that was when Turner himself had been commanding the defense. The first battle took place near Epsilon Colony, a mining world with 2 million inhabitants. Fleet Commander Thixelar led 20 ships against 5 Void Hunter vessels. He followed Defense Plan 7 exactly, but something went wrong almost immediately. "They are not responding as expected," reported his tactical officer. "The energy drain attacks are stronger than our records indicated." Thixelar watched in horror as 3 of his ships simply went dark. The crews inside were not dead, but they were drained of all life energy, leaving behind empty shells that would never wake up again. "Fall back to position Delta," he ordered, but it was too late. The Void Hunters adapted to the defensive formation faster than anyone had anticipated. Within an hour, Epsilon Colony was silent. 2 million people, gone in a single afternoon. News of the defeat spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Galactic Defense Fleet, once considered invincible, had been crushed by an enemy that should have been defeated using established tactics. Panic began to set in as world after world went dark. Prime Counselor Zethrak called an emergency session, his crystal body flickering with colors that had no name. Fear, desperation, and growing understanding all mixed together in his shifting form. "We need to contact the humans," said Counselor Deeptal without preamble. "General Turner is the only commander who has ever successfully fought the Void Hunters." "Absolutely not," Vexana shrieked, her gaseous form swirling with agitation. "We do not negotiate with deserters." "Then we all die," Deeptal replied bluntly. "The Outer Rim is already lost. 7 colonies, 12 mining stations, and 3 fleet bases have gone silent. At this rate, the Void Hunters will reach the core worlds within 6 months." Zethrak knew Deeptal was right, but his pride fought against the obvious solution. To contact the humans now would be admitting that the Council had been wrong about everything. It would mean acknowledging that the species they had dismissed as inferior was their only hope for survival. "There must be another way," he said desperately. "What about the ancient weapons? The predecessor artifacts?" "We tried that 30 years ago," Thexim chittered. "Only General Turner figured out how to make them work effectively. Without him, we are fighting with one hand tied behind our backs." On Earth, General Alex Turner sat in his retirement home, watching news reports from the galaxy with grim satisfaction. He had spent 30 years preparing for the Void Hunters' return, developing new strategies and weapons that could counter their energy-based attacks. Now that knowledge belonged to humanity alone. "They are dying out there," said Colonel Dan Turner, Alex's son, who served as a liaison to Earth Command. "Billions of innocent people, and they will continue to die until their leaders learn humility," Alex replied calmly. "I offered to train alien officers in anti-Void Hunter tactics dozens of times. I was told that human military thinking was too primitive for advanced species to bother learning. But sir, children are dying. Civilians who never had a say in how humans were treated." Alex's expression softened slightly. "Dan, I have been fighting for this galaxy since before you were born. I have lost more friends to alien wars than I care to count. Every time I tried to improve our defensive strategies, I was told that humans were too violent, too aggressive, too simple-minded. Now they want our help because their sophisticated tactics are not working. The truth was that Alex had never stopped preparing for the Void Hunters. During the years of human service to the galaxy, he had quietly developed new weapons and strategies. He had studied the energy patterns of Void Hunter ships and found weaknesses that other species had missed. But when he tried to share this knowledge, he was told that his ideas were too radical, too dangerous, too human. Meanwhile, the Galactic Defense Fleet was falling apart. Admiral Quintal had lost half his ships in just 2 weeks. The Void Hunters seemed to anticipate every move the aliens made. Worse, they appeared to be learning from each battle, adapting their tactics faster than the defenders could respond. "We need a new strategy," Quintal told his surviving commanders during a desperate video conference. "Defense Plan 7 is not working." "What about the human battle plans?" suggested Commander Crixpal. "General Turner left detailed files in the military database. Those files are encrypted with human security codes," Quintal admitted. "We cannot access them without Turner's authorization." The bitter irony was not lost on anyone. The humans had left behind the tools needed to fight the Void Hunters, but they had protected those tools with locks that only humans could open. On New Eden, Dr. Patricia Wells received an urgent message from Earth Command. The terraforming project would have to be put on hold. All human military resources were being redirected to planetary defense. If the Void Hunters broke through galactic defenses, Earth and the human colonies would be their next targets. "How long until our defense grid is operational?" she asked. Her engineering team. 2 months for basic coverage, replied Chief Engineer Bob Martinez. 6 months for full protection. Patricia nodded grimly. Unlike the aliens, humans had learned from their previous encounters with the Void Hunters. Every human world was being equipped with energy shields and weapons specifically designed to counter Void Hunter attacks. The technology was based on General Turner's research, innovations that he had tried to share with the galaxy decades ago. Back in Council space, desperation was reaching critical levels. Prime Counselor Zethrak received a direct message from the leader of the Epsilon refugees, one of the few ships that had escaped the colony's destruction. "My entire family is gone," the message read. "My children, my grandchildren, everyone I ever loved. They were drained of life while I was away on business. Please, I am begging you, contact the humans. Pride is not worth extinction, similar." Messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. The Void Hunters were not just killing people, they were destroying entire civilizations. Worlds that had existed for thousands of years were becoming silent balls of rock, stripped of all life, energy. Finally, with the enemy just 3 star systems away from the galactic capital, Zethrak made the hardest decision of his long life. He activated a direct communication channel to Earth, one that had not been used since the human exodus began. The face that appeared on his screen was not General Turner, but Director Helen Price. Her expression was professional but cold. "Prime Counselor," she said without warmth. "This is unexpected. I was under the impression that humans were too inferior to be worthy of direct communication with Council leadership." Zethrak's crystal form flickered with shame. "Director Price, we need your help. The Void Hunters have returned. Billions are dead. Only General Turner knows how to fight them effectively." "That is unfortunate," Helen replied. "However, the Terran Federation no longer provides military services to Galactic Council members. Perhaps you should contact your local representatives for assistance." It was the same polite rejection that humans had been giving to all alien requests for help. Zethrak felt his pride crumbling as he realized what Helen was doing. She was forcing him to ask properly, to acknowledge humanity as an equal partner rather than demanding their help as a superior giving orders to an inferior. "Director Price," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I am formally requesting military assistance from the Terran Federation as an equal partner in galactic defense." Helen studied him for a long moment. "Prime Counselor, that is a significant change in your position. Are you speaking for the entire Galactic Council?" "I am," Zethrak replied, though he knew he would face political consequences for this decision. "The Council formally recognizes the Terran Federation as an equal partner and requests immediate military assistance against the Void Hunter threat." Helen Price smiled, but it was not a warm expression. General Turner will need full operational command of all Galactic Defense Forces. He will need access to all military resources and personnel, and he will need absolute authority to implement whatever strategies he deems necessary. Are these terms acceptable? General Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the Earthship Resolute, watching the tactical display as his fleet approached the Void Hunter formation. The massive enemy ships looked exactly as he remembered from 30 years ago, but this time, he was ready for them. This time, he had weapons they had never seen before. All ships, this is General Turner, he announced over the fleet communication system. Begin deployment of energy disruptor fields. Remember, these weapons have never been tested in combat, but our simulations show they should neutralize Void Hunter drain attacks. Admiral Kate Sullivan, commander of the Resolute, stood beside him. Sir, the alien fleets are requesting permission to engage. Alex looked at the display showing the combined galactic forces. Ships from every council species floated in formation, waiting for his orders. A week ago, these same species had considered him an inferior being. Now they hung on his every word. Tell them to maintain defensive positions, Alex ordered. Let my people show them how this is done. The first wave of human ships moved forward. Unlike the sleek designs favored by alien species, the human vessels looked rough and practical. They had been built for one purpose: destroying Void Hunters. Energy disruptors active, reported Lieutenant Dan Morris from the weapons station. All systems showing green. The Void Hunter ships responded as Alex expected. They began their signature, life drain attack, sending beams of dark energy toward the human fleet. In previous battles, these beams had instantly killed entire crews. This time, something different happened. The energy beams struck invisible barriers around the human ships and simply stopped. The disruptor fields that Alex had spent decades developing absorbed the Void Hunter attacks and converted them into harmless radiation. Direct hit with no effect, Morris reported with excitement. The shields are holding perfectly. Admiral Quintal, commanding the alien fleet from his flagship, watched in amazement. How are they doing that? He asked his tactical officer. Unknown, sir. The human ships are using technology we have never seen before. Alex smiled grimly. The energy disruptor technology had been his secret project during the years of human service to the galaxy. He had tried to share the early research with alien scientists, but they had dismissed it as too dangerous and unpredictable. Now that technology was saving the galaxy. All ships, commence attack pattern Delta, Alex commanded. The human fleet split into 3 groups, each approaching the Void Hunters from a different angle. The aliens watching from their defensive positions had never seen this tactic before. It looked chaotic and unorganized compared to the precise formations they preferred. But Alex knew something the aliens did not understand. Void Hunters were creatures of pure energy, and energy followed predictable patterns. By attacking from multiple directions simultaneously, the human ships forced the enemy to split their attention and weaken their defenses. First target destroyed, reported Captain Jenny Brooks from the destroyer Vengeance. The new plasma torpedoes are incredibly effective. One by one, the Void Hunter ships began to fall. The energy weapons that had made them nearly invincible were useless against human disruptor shields. The new human weapons, designed specifically to disrupt energy-based life forms, tore through Void Hunter defenses like they were made of paper. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. Every Void Hunter ship had been destroyed or driven back into dark space. The fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for months was gone. The alien commanders could hardly believe what they had witnessed. Admiral Quintal sent a message to the Resolute. General Turner, that was incredible. How did you develop such effective weapons? I had 30 years to think about it, Alex replied. 30 years of being told my ideas were too primitive for advanced species to understand. The victory at the Galactic Rim was just the beginning. Over the next 3 months, General Turner led the combined human and alien fleets in a systematic campaign to drive the Void Hunters back to their home dimension. Every battle followed the same pattern. Human ships led the attack using superior technology and tactics, while alien vessels provided support. The aliens learned quickly that their old assumptions about human military thinking had been completely wrong. Human tactics appeared chaotic and unpredictable. but they were actually based on a deep understanding of physics and psychology that other species had missed. During the Battle of Centauri Gate, Captain Mike Rodriguez used his ship as bait to lure a Void Hunter fleet into an energy trap. To alien observers, it looked like suicide. To humans, it was a calculated risk based on precise understanding of Void Hunter behavior patterns. Captain Rodriguez is going to get himself killed, worried Commander Thixler, but Rodriguez survived and the trap worked perfectly. 15 Void Hunter ships were destroyed in a single coordinated strike. On Earth, Director Helen Price watched the war reports with satisfaction. Every human victory made it clearer that the galaxy needed humanity far more than humanity needed the galaxy. The balance of power was shifting permanently. The Galactic Council is requesting a formal meeting, reported Colonel Dan Turner. They want to discuss the post-war situation. I am sure they do, Helen replied. Schedule a meeting for next month. Let them wait a little longer. The war against the Void Hunters ended with a final battle near the Galactic core. General Turner used the combined fleet to drive the remaining enemy ships through a dimensional rift, sealing them away from normal space. The victory was complete, but the cost had been enormous for the alien species. Entire star systems had been depopulated. Hundreds of worlds needed to be rebuilt. The galactic economy was in ruins. Only the human colonies protected by advanced defense systems had emerged from the war stronger than before. When the Galactic Council finally convened to discuss the new political situation, the chamber looked very different. Representatives from 12 species sat in a circle, but now a 13th chair had been added at the center of the room. The human chair was larger than the others and positioned to show that humanity was no longer just another member species. Director, Helen Price took her seat as Earth's chief representative. Around her, the alien counselors who had once dismissed humans as inferior now looked at her with respect and fear. Prime Counselor Zethrak called the session to order, his crystal form pulsing with nervous energy. The Galactic Council formally recognizes the Terran Federation as a founding member with full voting rights and permanent representation in all council decisions. It was more than humanity had originally asked for. They were not just being granted membership, they were being acknowledged as one of the founding powers of galactic civilization. The Terran Federation accepts this recognition, Helen replied, graciously. We look forward to working with all species as equal partners in our shared future. But everyone in the chamber understood the real meaning of her words. Humanity had proven that they could survive and thrive without the galaxy, but the galaxy could not survive without humanity. The humans held all the advanced technology, the most effective military strategies, and the strongest economy. They were not just equal partners. They were the dominant power. Counselor Vexana, her gaseous form much smaller and dimmer than before, spoke hesitantly. Director Price, we hope that past misunderstandings will not affect future cooperation. Helen smiled, but it was the same cold expression she had worn during their desperate plea for help. Counselor Vexana, the past is indeed past. However, the future will be built on mutual respect and recognition of each species' contributions. I trust that will not be a problem. The message was clear. Humanity would work with the other species, but only as equals. The days of human service, without recognition, were over forever. Dr. Patricia Wells attended the meeting as humanity's science representative. The terraforming expert who had been developing new worlds during the war now controlled technology that could transform the galaxy. Dozens of dead worlds could be brought back to life using techniques that only humans understood. The Terran Federation is prepared to share our terraforming technology, she announced. We can help rebuild the worlds lost to the Void Hunters. However, all research and development will be conducted as equal partnerships with full credit, given to all participants. It was a generous offer, but it came with conditions. Never again would human innovations be credited to alien scientists. Never again would human expertise be taken for granted. General Alex Turner, now serving as the galaxy's supreme military commander, presented his plans for future defense. The Void Hunters will return eventually, he warned. When they do, we must be ready. I propose a unified defense force with standardized training and equipment. The training would be based on human military doctrine. The equipment would use human-designed technology. In effect, the entire galactic military would become an extension of human strategic thinking. Some counselors objected to giving humans so much control, but they had no choice. The recent war had proven that only human tactics worked against the galaxy's greatest threats. To survive, they needed to learn from their former servants. Captain Steve Blake, who had commanded the last human ship to leave the Galactic Defense Fleet, now found himself promoted to admiral and placed in charge of fleet coordination.